All right, so for this exercise, we're challenging that soleus muscle. So the soleus is the calf muscle that gets no love. Everybody thinks about the gastroc because that's what we see visibly when we look at people's calves. The soleus is actually bigger than the gastroc. We just don't see it because it's underneath that gastroc muscle. So the gastroc muscle we train when our knees are straight. So a straight knee calf raise, we're training that gastroc. As soon as I bend my knees, I put that gastroc on slack. And so now it can't contract. Now the soleus is the MVP. So anytime that we are doing a bent knee calf raise, we're going to be isolating that soleus. So one option is just a bent knee calf raise machine. So if you have a machine at your gym where you can go about 80 to 90 degrees of a bent knee, right? And then that pad goes right above the knee, and we could just do a calf raise there. That's great. The loading potential is super high, so we can really go heavy on that. If you don't have a calf raise machine, I've done Smith machine before. This is a lot more difficult. I don't really advise it, but just know that this is it's a possibility where I get a thick pad like an Eric's pad and I put that on my knees, kind of on my thigh. I would rest that Smith machine bar on that pad so it's above my knees, it's sitting down on my thigh, and then I can load on that, and I'm just sitting on a bench, and then I have my feet up on like a bumper plate, and so then I can still go through that calf raise, that seated calf raise motion, and there's high potential for loading with the Smith machine. Now, I'm going to give you a variation that we can do just with our body weight, and it's probably lower risk of injury, and you're not going to get that bar smashing down on your thighs like you would with the Smith machine. So this is a split stance soleus calf raise. So all we're doing is coming into that split stance, and I'm just coming on a bumper plate or a step. Now, I want to get that heel nice and low on that step. So the ball of the foot is up on that bumper plate or the step. I want that heel nice and low. When you bring that heel down, you're going to feel a stretch in that soleus. So this is very good for ankle mobility. And that's sort of what this exercise is for, is primarily ankle mobility. But because we're going to add a calf raise to it, we are strengthening that soleus since that knee is in a bent position. So all I'm doing is gradually coming up in that calf raise. Notice that my whole body is going to be lifted, right? And then I'm controlling down 2 to 3 seconds. So it's up about 1 second and it's down about 2 to 3 seconds. All right, so we are challenging that ankle mobility, but we're also strengthening that soleus. Now, keep in mind, the soleus is so important. It's one of the first lines of defense for knee health. Right? If I'm landing from a jump or cutting or sprinting or whatever we're doing, when we're landing, that force from the ground a lot of times shoots straight up through our knees. But if we have good eccentric strength in that soleus muscle, as we're going into that eccentric plantar flexion, we're absorbing a lot of that energy, a lot of the force in that soleus muscle. So less force shoots up through the knee. So it's one of the first lines of defense for knee health is strengthening up that soleus. But guess what? Athletes don't do it because we're so obsessed with the gastroc. Now, of course, the gastroc can also help us accept some of that force from the floor, but the meat and potatoes is going to come down to the soleus because we are going to be in that bent knee position. Like when we're landing from a jump, my knees are not locked out. So my knees are bent, and so the soleus has a high demand for absorbing all of that force. So we do want to make sure that we're getting enough soleus strengthening. Now, rep range, we're going to start at 2 sets, add a set each day. Depends on how difficult this exercise for you, how strong your soleus is. So for me, I start around 5 to 7 reps, and then I'll just add, 1 rep or 2 reps each time that I do this exercise. But don't go crazy. I want you coming to maybe an 8 out of 10 on the burn scale. This is not an exercise where I want you like completely in pain on the floor, rolling around after you're done with the exercise, because your soleus is going to be so sore the next day that it's going to really impact the rest of your week. And so make sure that you're keeping it like an 8 out of 10. Don't push to failure, but then gradually start to add reps and or add sets each time you do this exercise until we get to about 4 sets.